Hello and welcome back to Bookish and welcome back to Saturday Hodgepodge, my weekly wrap-up of my reading, booktube stuff, bookish things, anything else I want to talk about. I had a really good reading month. I think I had one book which I would consider to be an outstanding read in the month, but I read, I think, 8 books, which is really unusual for me. One of those books I read was How to Pronounce Knife, a collection of short stories by the Laotian Canadian author, I want to pronounce her name right, Souvankham Thammavongsa. And I did that as a buddy read with Courtney Ferriter. I think I mentioned this before. I don't think either of us was particularly blown away by the stories in the books. There were some that were good and some that were just so slight and trivial they didn't really feel like stories. The author's writing style is spare. It's really just kind of stripped down, and in some ways that works to evoke emotion, and in some ways not so much. In addition to that, the other buddy read I've been doing this month is a continuing buddy read. Oh, I'm sorry about the camera. Continuing buddy read I'm doing with Mary and Ryan of The Warmth of Other Suns by Isabell Wilkerson. We'll be checking in on doing our 5th check-in on Monday of next week, and this has just been great, and getting to read with Marion has been great. So that will be ongoing. I also finished a book, or read a book in September. There's a carryover from my August TBR, and that's Quiet Flows the Una by Faruk Sehik, translated from the Bosnian by Will Firth. This is, I think, for me, the best book I read in this month. It may make it into the top 10. There's just something about the book and its imagery and its use of language and its kind of use of nature as a metaphor for home, and anyway, just it really stuck with me, and there are images and ideas in here which keep coming back to me, which is one of the things which usually means a book's going to creep into or be in my top 10. So there's that book which I read. I think I also mentioned before I read Soldier's Pay by William Faulkner. This is Faulkner's first novel. Racist, misogynist, racist language, misogynist themes, I think. But interesting if you're a Faulkner person and a Faulkner completist. I think this would be a book you'd want to read. It's not a bad book, aside from the two obvious things I said. But it's a first novel, and not a great first novel. I also read Gone with the Wind this month, which I put up a review of, and I said everything I want to say about Gone with the Wind in that video. To cleanse my palate from Gone with the Wind, I mentioned last week that I was reading Love in Summer by William Trevor, and I did finish that, and it was, as beautiful and sad and powerful as, William Trevor's works usually are. I listened to an audiobook of F. Scott Fitzgerald's The Beautiful and the Damned, and I enjoyed it far more than I thought I would. Now, you may know that I get my audiobooks from LibriVox, which is a free service, and sometimes they're great narrators, and sometimes they're not. I thought the narrator here was fine, even though the voice he used for the main female character, Gloria, was irritating, and I question whether or not that influenced the way I thought about Gloria throughout the book. Because of that narration. But the book itself was actually way more entertaining. It's overwritten, it's too long, it's one of those books where it seems like Fitzgerald was trying to prove, which I think he was, prove that he deserved the praise he got for his first novel, This Side of Paradise, but, not a bad read. I also finished a memoir titled When I Was Puerto Rican by Esmeralda Santiago. I've said many times on my channel that memoir is not necessarily my favorite thing, but it's growing on me. And it's the memoir of the story of a young girl, Esmeralda, as she travels from literal childhood to her teen years, and as her family moves from home to home in Puerto Rico, and her large family, by the way, moves from home to home in Puerto Rico, and her parents have trouble, and then her mother moves her to Brooklyn in New York. And it's really vividly told, and my favorite parts about it are the descriptions and discussions of food, and the descriptions and the discussion of their homes and the places they lived, and of their family relations. Just really great stuff there. There is, there are some disturbing images of violence against children and sexualization of children, and brief sexual assault would be well, I'm going to go ahead and call them assault of the main character. Just for content warnings, there are those things. But I really liked it. I really liked the writing, and like I said, the descriptions of place and food and smells and colors and were just really brilliant, and I really enjoyed it a great deal. And as from all memoirs, while I certainly don't think it's the author's job to educate me about something, I feel like I learned about life in Puerto Rico in the 1950s, 1960s, and then a little bit about the Puerto Rican experience as a migrant to New York City. If I said immigrate before, that was a mistake. That was a migration because Puerto Rico is a part of the United States and Puerto Rican people are U.S. citizens. And then yesterday, then on Thursday, I had a desire to pick up a Balzac novel, and so I picked up Colonel Chabert, which is a really short kind of novella-length work. My edition is one of those which is a print-on-demand thing, which means that the pagination is funky and the chapter breaks were wrong. And since when I started reading, it was hard to follow because of the way in which the pages were laid out. I also listened to this on audiobook, but I listened to it while I read the text. Now, for me, that meant I listened to it more than reading, but it also kind of helped reinforce it. And it went really fast. It's not a very long novel. Being a print-on-demand book, there are no page numbers. I have to be honest with you, one of the things which really gets to me as a reader is when there are no page numbers in a book. I had this obsession with knowing how many more pages I have to read, and that was really frustrating. But fortunately, the audiobook had, I could track how much longer in the audiobook I had to read. So that was my wrap up for September. A productive reading month. One potentially great book, and some others that I liked a great deal. So this is October. And October is Victober, and so I do have a Victober TBR. As is always true, I'm really not paying attention to the prompts of the hosts, and I don't mean that to be rude. I'll list the hosts below, but the hosts are Kate Howe and Lucy the reader, and then Katie from Books and Things are the hosts of Victober, and I'll leave links to their videos down below, in which they have the prompts. Usually, I figure out, or usually it's true that when I end up reading these books, some of the books I read fit the prompts anyway, but I didn't choose them that way because I had kind of plans for Victober already. So I'm planning on reading at least 4 books for Victober, 4 Victorian books, 3 of them novels, 1 of them a memoir. The memoir is titled The Wonderful Adventures of Mrs. Secole in Faraway Lands, I believe, is the title of that book. Mrs. Secole was a woman of African descent, a British citizen who I believe essentially ran a rooming house during the Crimean War and ended up serving as kind of a hospital or a nurse. I think that's the story. But I wanted to read it because, a piece of Victorian literature, whether it's fiction or nonfiction, written by a person of African descent, written by a person of color, are relatively rare, and so I wanted to do that. And I believe I'd heard somebody read this book last year for Victober at some other point, so I also wanted to do it for that reason. I'll be reading that as an ebook. Matter of fact, almost all my reading this month, all my Victober reading will be via ebook, so that will be also a little bit unusual. I read and enjoyed Barchester Towers last year. And I had read The Warden, the first book in the Chronicles of Barchester series by Anthony Trollope, so I wanted to pick up the 3rd book, which is Dr. Thorne. I believe there's actually a new television series, or maybe it's a Netflix series or something like that, about Dr. Thorne. I haven't seen it, but Dr. Thorne is, I believe, the 3rd book in the Chronicles of Barchester, Barchester. There we go. I think that's it. And so I want to pick that up and read it. I didn't realize how long it was when I picked it up or chose that, but it is a long book. But I would definitely want to get to that. The other long book I wanted to read was Adam Bede by George Elliot. I've been promising people who really love George Elliot that I was going to pick up another George Elliot novel for October, and I chose Adam Bede because I think it's a little shorter than The Middle on the Floss and Middlemarch. And so I picked it up, and it is a long book. So that's two really long Victorian books in the month of for Victober. I also am going to listen to the audiobook of The War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells, which should go quickly, and I'm really looking forward to that. I've never read or listened to any of Wells's books, so I want to do that. And then, if there's time, I'm feeling a little cocky, I think, because 8 books is probably the most books I've ever read in a month in my life. Feeling a little bit cocky, I also thought I might then, if time permitted, read Cousin Phillips by Elizabeth Gaskell. Cousin Phillips is in the same volume. It came as the second book in the same book in which I got Cranford, which I read I think for my very first Victober. So I'm looking at that. It's really short, which will be a relief after the other two. So that will be 5 books for Victober. On top of that, I have 2 buddy reads that are going on. I mentioned before, I'm still going to be reading The Warmth of Those Suns with Mary and Ryan, BookTube commenter and all around literary genius, and I've been enjoying that, so I'll continue that. And then there's also a group buddy read of W.G. Sebald's Austerlitz, which is being led by Mark Nash and Courtney Ferriter and Sina from Beating Around the Books is joining us and me, and we're reading this. This is Sebald's 4th novel. This is actually the first one I read, and it's been a while since I read it, so I'm really looking forward to that. And then if there's time, because there won't be, but if there were, I do want to get to The Only Good Indians. This is a book I picked up in the spring as a part of my effort to read more indigenous American writers or First Nation writers, American writers, or I should say North American writers probably. And this, I believe, is a bit of a horror novel or a thriller, and so that sounded good for me to go with Halloween. So hopefully by near the end of the month, I'll be able to get to that as well. Anyway, there's my ambitious Victober and otherwise TBR, and my incredibly long and probably somewhat repetitive wrap-up for September. I want to also do just a few other things in this Saturday Hodgepodge. The first thing I want to do is share a little video vlog I made for you of a nature walk or a nature experience. My wife and I went to a nature center near where we live called the Armand Bio Nature Center, which is essentially just several hundred acres, I believe, of just preserved wildland. There's prairie, there's swampland, there's forested land, and we went there, and so I shot up some video clips and I've edited those together to make a vlog, so that vlog will be right here. I also want to do one shout out this week. And that's a shout out for a booktuber I think a lot of you know, and that's Andrea. Her channel name is Infinite Text. And Andrea recently got a new job, which she describes as her dream job. And she is working, I believe, in the rare book section of the Robertson Davies library. And so congratulations to Andrea for that job. Nothing like getting the job you think you always wanted, and the joy that must bring you. But she's also been doing a hosting and making YouTube content for the Robertson Davies library. So I'm going to leave a link to that channel down below and encourage you to go watch the last 1 or 2 videos you'll find there were done by Andrea, and I just think they're excellent. I love listening to her talk about books and rare books in particular. So I watched Bob the Bookerer's video, last video I believe this week. I think it was, I can't remember, I think it was a tag video, but anyway, he mentioned that he was, it was the Mooks and Gripes bucket list tag that Bob did, and he mentioned he wanted to read Anna Karenina, and he said, whenever he thought of Anna Karenina, he thought about this song called "I Have a Bad Feeling About Anna Karenina" by Phoebe Kreutz, I believe is the name of the musician, and that's what he thought about. Well, him saying that made me think about, you know, book songs about books, or songs about writers, or songs in which books play a big role. I couldn't think of very many, but I'm going to leave a link to those down below and mention them here really quickly. The first one that came to my mind was Paperback Writer by the Beatles, so I'll leave that down below. Then Elvis Costello's Every Day I Write the Book, which is a song I actually really like. And then another song that came to my mind is one I've heard performed many times, and it's called "I Could Write a Book." It's a song I think probably most people have heard in movie soundtracks or somewhere else. It's kind of a classic jazz song. I'm listing 2 versions for it. One is the Miles Davis Quintet version, which doesn't contain any singing. It's just instrumental, but it is beautiful and amazing, as Miles Davis is, you know, wont to be, or was wont to be. And then I also am leaving a link to Harry Connick Jr.'s version, which was featured in the movie When Harry Met Sally. And then the other song I thought about was that had to do with books, or has books in the title. That's just the Book of Love. I didn't know that song was recorded by a group called the Monotones, but that's who recorded the song Book of Love, and I'll leave a link to that down below. So if you wanted to listen to some songs about books, there you go. If you know of other songs about books, then, you know, feel free to leave that in the comments section down below. As always, thank you for watching.